Hi, we are here to show a presentation to Professor Thomas Pogge from Yale University on IBERO's social responsibility programs. We are honored to have him here with us to listen to this presentation, but also we are certain that he will value and appreciate and think about what we're going to share with him about these achievements in social responsibility. We also hope to have some comments if you want to stop the presenter for asking something so you can follow up the presentation in better terms. That would be great. And this is a very special occasion. Oddly enough, we have not talked much about our social responsibility programs. It's something that has been done in the quiet, as it should, but it also needs to be expressed and shared. There are many possibilities. Especially what we find very interesting is that all this process leads to, people from different social classes meeting together, working together as a team, and benefiting mutually from the experience of social responsibility. What we also find is that it is working as an incubator for social entrepreneurs. People not only work for a period of a year and a half in these projects, they develop a liking for it, they develop skills that enable them to obtain funding, so that they learn how to be social entrepreneurs, and then they choose it as a path for their own life and their own professional development. So these are contributions that are very special. They create hope. Hope that, let's say, the mainstream is not dominating everything. That people have a heart and have developed a taste for helping others and for seeing them grow and improve their conditions.
Yeah, this is what we need in New Haven. We have a big problem in my town, because we have a very, very rich university with very rich kids, and then we have the slum neighborhoods on the side, and the university is failing miserably in having good community relations. It's an embarrassment. It's really quite terrible. So we could do so much. The university has all these resources. We could do so much better. I don't know whether you noticed that when you were there, but I've been struggling there desperately. We have a big community affairs office, but people sit there with beautiful desks and do nothing, as far as I can see.
And now we're moving forward because we're opening technical courses for people that finish their high school. And for people in the area of Santa Fe, they will be for free. These will open when?
No, they are already.
They're open here.
They are not free, but they are very low cost. It's Técnico Superior Universitario. It's almost like a BA, but like
associates.
Yeah, it would be like a college training course.
And it's just 300 pesos.
And the degree is given by IBERO.
By IBERO.
By the professors that teach the rich kids. They teach us.
And the teaching happens in Santa Fe.
No, here.
No,
here.
So they come here.
Yes, they are IBERO students.
Okay.
So it works in the
How far is Santa Fe?
15 minutes.
15 minutes.
Yes. We will be glad if you have more time. We can take you and walk you, because I think you would like to share with people there and see what we mean by building this trust. Something that has been very, very nice is to see, as we always say, friendship is the base of our work. And it has been very nice, this discovery, because our students, when they start relating to the people there, first they go and say, no, it's a dangerous place, and there are very only bad people there, and gangs, and I don't want to go there. And then they discover all these big hearts that live there, but also the discovering is the other way around. Because they always say, I know the various students are, they are snobs and then when they discover them, they start playing with the kids together, or they start doing these architectural projects or whatever they do together, they start discovering each other and they say, oh no, but the various students are very nice too. So I think that the important thing is that we are building bridges and that we are showing that as Mexicans we can work together, and not only that we can, but that is what what we really would like to is to make like this model that could be, as you said, copied and others, and that show that we have to work together. If we want to make a difference, if we want to build social justice, we have to give the best of ourselves, the best of our worlds, and also we have to respect the culture. I love what Alberto says, because we have to respect that there are other ways of seeing reality, there are other ways of understanding the world, and we have to work with that, and that's what we are doing, or intending to do. Yes. And Alberto will tell you more.
By the way, we can serve coffees while we're listening to this presentation. Does anybody want some coffee?
You want some?
Yeah. You don't have to stand up.
Not so much. How do you want some water?
No, I'm fine. Just in practice.
Well, maybe while Larry is serving, I'll just explain a little bit to be contextualized. I'm working in Yomol A'tel. Yomol A'tel is an indigenous word, which means walking together, working together, and dreaming together. And it's sort of a social business holding group that is composed of a co-op, which is the Tzeltal, of a micro roasting enterprise, of coffee shops, of honey, also micro industry, and soap micro industry. So it's
the last one?
Soaps of honey, made out of honey. And it's a conglomerate of social and solidarity enterprises that is working in a territory and works in the lines of solidarity, equal, and global justice business. So I'll try to explain this a little bit more. But I always like to start a presentation with this phrase. It's from Leonardo Boff, it's a Brazilian geologist, that says, society doesn't live without utopias, which means without a dream of dignity, of respect for life, and of pacific coexistence between people and populations. If we don't have utopias, we'll bog down in the individual interests, losing the sense for a good life in common. This idea of good life in common, in Spanish called Buen Vivir, in Tzeltal called Lequilcus Lejalil, it's an indigenous Mesoamerican idea that's permeated throughout the territory. And it's more into that a good life or good living in common, it's more close to the harmony that you have with the environment, with the families, with your community, than to the accumulation of wealth. So in these lines is that we try to build this social and solidarity business. To put you a little bit in context and in territory that your work that will come, to explain a little bit about coffee, that it's like the main track that we work with. Coffee is produced in the tropical area of the world, especially in the so-called developing countries. And it's consumed in the northern countries, so-called developed countries. So this starts to give us an idea of the families that are consuming coffee and the families that are producing coffee. Especially if we have a zoom in the southeast of Mexico, we have in that map the areas where coffee is produced. Right in this map we have the indigenous population settlements, and in this map, in the lower right map, we have the municipalities, the counties, where people in extreme poverty are living. So the funny thing about these three maps is that we overlap them. We have a very, very close relationship between coffee, indigenous population, and extreme poverty. So this is why we started working with coffee. And we have another Zoom in Chiapas, which is the state that I work with, is collaborating with Guatemala and with Belize. We also have two big coffee-producing regions, but there's a big difference also in these two regions. In the northern part of Chiapas, that's where we are located, we have also the extreme poverty counties, and we also have the indigenous settlements. So again, we have this relationship between coffee, between indigenous population, and extreme poverty. Also, there's a map too, in these three maps, there's a biodiversity map. So it's also a fourth map that we overlap with these three maps. We have this relationship between these elements. Yes, with another zoom. Now this is the area that now we are zooming in Chiapas. We work in this, especially in these two municipalities. One of these is Tzeltal. Tzeltal is between the 10th poorest municipios or municipalities of the country in percentage. Chilon is between the 10 poorest in number of families living in extreme poverty. So we are in an area in this country that, just to give an example, life expectancy is around 20 years because of the high infant rate of mortality.
20 years?
More or less, because there's a lot of infant mortality in Mexico.
Yeah.
It's one doctor for every 40,000 people. Only one doctor.
So this is a region that lives in extreme poverty conditions, but it's also a region with great cultural, social, and environmental wealth. We work especially with the Tzeltal Mayan communities. This is a derivation of the Mayan ethnic group. In Chiapas, we have 13 different types of Mayan ethnic groups. The Tzeltal is the biggest one. And also, it's a very, it's a natural, there's a lot of natural wealth. It's a place especially good for producing coffee. This is a picture that I took last week when we went to one of the assemblies. It's called mist forests because it's the transition between the jungle and high forest. We are around 1,000 meters above sea level, so it's a very good place to grow coffee. It's a place where culturally and socially there's a lot of wealth, but it's a place where economically, compared to other parts of the country, live in an extreme situation. And also, talking about coffee, they live where I think it's a global systemic problem, which is the commodities. And especially people living, producing these commodities. Coffee is a commodity. It's traded, especially in the New York Stock Exchange. And this is the graphic of the last maybe 5 or 6 years of coffee. Usually, coffee trades around $100, $150 a pound. In 2011, we had maximum historical prices, very good for the region. The big coffee enterprises and industries were very upset because they were losing a lot of money to this, while coffee-producing regions were getting a lot of wealth from, not a lot of wealth, but what's just for them. But then again, in the last 2 years, this price has lost 60% of its value. This means that all the coffee-producing families in the world are receiving around 60% less income than 2 years ago.
What is driving these prices, do you know?
Yes, there's especially, well, it's a commodity. There's a volatility expectancy. There's less production, that's for sure, due to climate change. For example, now we're facing in Central America a big problem, which is called the roya, which is a type of fungus that that is driving down the production of coffee. But there's definitely an issue of a lot of volatility due to climate change. But there's also financial speculation.
Yeah, but what is driving it back down?
Back down, I think, for example, this big pike comes from 2008. 2008 was the big financial crisis. A lot of movement in the stock exchange, especially actives coming up from hedge funds, from the immobiliary business, going into commodities. For example, 2 or 1 year ago, there was a big famine in Ethiopia due to huge prices in the wheat. That's the basic food from Africa. So it's the same. There was a lot of speculation, especially in the commodities. And as a volatile thing, it came down. So we're facing, for example, today we saw the stock exchange price. It was at $122 US per kilogram. Fair Trade International establishes that below the 130 US dollars per pound line, there's an extreme poverty situation promotion in the coffee producing areas. So this year it's going to be a very difficult year for the coffee producing families in the whole world. So this is what we're facing. It's a global systemic problem due to this system of commodities that the people that get the worst part of it are the producing families. Because of the access they have to different tools or different resources to have a solution for this. So how do we build a project with this context, with this situation? Especially what we try to think is that it's, well, what I think it's not my project. It's a project that I collaborate with. It's a project with our families and that I walk alongside these families. It's not a project that I am pushing through. I'm just giving my capacities to this project as most of the families are putting their capacities as coffee producers into it. And we like to see it with a holistic perspective, especially understanding the complexity of this territory. So in the territory, we have an ecological focus, cultural, social bonds, the economics, the politics. If we like to address this problem only with the economical focus, we are lost. Because poverty here is a multidimensional problem, that's a very complex problem, and that we need to understand all its dimensions to really have a better approach to this problem. And taking into account is that we are working in a territory, we have three theoretical elements that we try to bring into this territory. The first one is social and solidarity economics, which more or less is how do we produce in a sense of solidarity, of equality, and in respect of, the Tzeltales say, Mother Nature, of the environment. How do we create social empowerment, which is, in a brief resume, how do we effectively control the territory by the population in it? And the development alternatives. It's not a development how the countries imagine it, but it's a development of how the local population dreams of it. In this case, working with indigenous communities, it's more based on on this good living sense of life that we try to promote these alternatives. And in these alternatives, we have two opposed things. For example, we have the extreme vulnerability of these families. We understand poverty as a barrel full of holes, where countries only pour water into this barrel, and then all this water comes up from all the holes. So the solution, and we see it in Mexico, there's a lot of programs of subsidies called oportunidades, called Procampo, called a lot of programs that just are focused in pouring more water into this barrel, but not of putting holes or of mending a new barrel. This has created a poverty culture. People saying, okay, so I'm going to receive my subsidy, and this is my type of living, creating a habitus, a way of behavior, a way of resolving the problems, and a destruction of the culture, of the local culture. On the other hand, what we try to do is we want to defend the wealth in this territory. The wealth, the economic wealth, the cultural wealth, the social wealth. It's not only in economical terms. We always say, where's our heart going? And it's the heart of the people that we walk through, we walk alongside these families, but also the heart of the family. We're talking that 2 years ago when the prices reached historical maximums, a lot of people went with a coyote because of that peso or 2 peso difference with the cooperatives. And that's, we question it because it's people that we have been working with a lot of years, so their heart is part with the cooperative, part with the cooperative, and part with the coyote. And there's a desert experience that we take up from the Bible, and this Father Oscar, who is one of the initiaries of this project, says that he takes us the story of the Jewish people when Moses drives them away from the Egyptians and drives them into the desert. So they were free of the oppression of the Egyptians, but they were walking through a desert in a very complicated way because it was thirsty, it was difficult, and a lot of people were like, this is not my path. I prefer to go back to the Egyptians, even though I am part of slavery, but that's more comfortable than walking free in the desert. So this is what we are experiencing. We're experiencing a project that tries to lose the oppression of a system, a commodity system, and it's difficult, and it's long-term. It's step by step because there's a lot of people that don't have faith in it. As I said, there's like 10 or maybe 50% of the producers of the families that really understand this project, really say, this is a project for me, but for my children and for my community. But most of them are, if the coyote offers 1 peso more, I'm going to go with it. So we're living this experience, walking through a desert, and people not having faith in it. Some do, but some don't. And it's difficult because to emancipate from this oppression, it's not easy. And this is made with base organization with a focus on autonomy for the territory. So this is our dream. Our dream is not to have a lot of coffee shops and not to have all the market for the coffee, but the dream is in the center, the Tzeltal family. And we understand that the Tzeltal family has a component of production that can be given to the market, but most importantly, we have to control our means of subsistence, which is an autosufficiency focus where we need to control not only coffee, not only honey that we market, but the mountains, our rivers, our corn, which is our food, the livestock that we work with, water, all the animals that live in the house, but especially control these means of subsistence with a focus of local knowledge, local Tzeltal indigenous knowledge, local cosmovision, their spirituality. It's very important for them, their spirituality is in all their works there. I always tell this story. The first assembly that I went to the cooperative, where like 100 producers, we had a meeting schedule, and we had to talk about price, we had to talk about volumes, we had to talk about the agreements we had to take for the next year. And we started the meeting like about 5 in the morning, and we built a Mayan altar because we had to give grace for Mother Earth, we had to prepare for what we were coming, we had to pray to the 4 cardinal points. And after 2 hours of praying, I started getting very, 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 very nervous. Because I said, we have to touch God, we have to talk about Christ, we have to talk about this. We've been praying for 2 hours, and at 2 o'clock the bands are going to go, and there's going to be nobody here to talk about it. And one of the people, one of the oldest the indigenous leaders comes to me and says, Alberto, don't be nervous. Please understand that if we do not prepare our hearts for the points that we need to talk about, we're not going to get to an agreement. And for us to prepare our hearts, is that we need to pray for Mother Earth. We need to understand each other, to be in the same land. I sat down, and it was for me like, accidentally, for me the meeting had to be quick, had to go to the point, and this is the way that I've been taught to in the university. But I had to understand another way of understanding the meeting to actually be able to give something to that meeting. So for me it was very important to understand the spirituality in the work. Also the paper of the woman in the household, and especially the local system of people, of charges, of civil responsibilities that they have, either religious or civil. And this is the people that we like to work with, because it's people that they serve their community, and they receive nothing but this serving of the community. So how do we build a solidarity business model with this context and with these values, with these indigenous values? And first of all, we understand that business, as a traditional way, needs to maximize profit. And this is one of the capitalists' themes that has produced a lot of the conflicts, a lot of the issues in the world. Maximize profit. By the other side, what we like to do is to maximize social benefit through rentability. And social benefit meaning in the local way of perceiving social benefit. In the capitalist way, there's competition relationships. We try to promote cooperations and reciprocity relationships. There's a partial approach to reality. Traditional business in coffee in this region go to the commodity, goes through the economical aspect. If we do not understand culture, social, ecology, spirituality, we cannot really approach this problem. There are capitalist stockholders, there's social profit, there's social property with governability, which is very difficult and very hard to build. And in Yomol A'tel is what we're trying to do. Trying to build social property with governability. Social property of the producing families, social property of the workers, social property of the stakeholders involved in this process. With a lot of autonomy for the territories, with an ethnic viability, which means social, environmental, and cultural, and economic. Realizing the complexity of the territory. And also with nation, Tzeltal, and social and solidarity economics values. Being business, we also need to focus on efficiency. Because if we want to make this affordable, we need to make it work. So we have a lot of different businesses, from the cooperative, to the honey, to the soaps made out by the woman, by the micro industry that exports the product as an added value, not as a commodity, and the coffee shops. That, for example, we have one here in the university that gives the added value to the coffee. In this example, we worked in the integral coffee value chain. We developed a value chain that, first of all, we have to understand the two rhythms that we're working with, the two logics that we're working with. In one side is the indigenous Tzeltal logic. In the other side is the globalized economical rhythm. And they're naturally not compatible. So how do we work with these rhythms? How do we understand the needs of each rhythm? So we have the cooperative working especially in the agroecological restoration of the territory, in the organizational, in the empowerment of the social movement. We have Tzeltal, creating added value to the coffee, selling it as a finished product. And we have Capeltic, selling it the coffee by cup. The big difference in this is that we acquire all the added value that we reach in a coffee cup. And it's very funny because, for example, 1 kilogram of this coffee nowadays, it's 20 pesos, which is less than $2 per kilogram. Tzeltal takes this coffee, and in 1 kilogram of bag, it's now selling at $12. But then Capeltic takes 1 kilogram of Tzeltal's coffee and produces a value of over $150. So understanding this added value chain, we are able to return this value creation in the investment of the social projects, but also in the coffee school that we call it, that is to create the capacities and generate the capacities in the people to manage all this value chain. And this is also, we do it in a way, for example, from Tzeltal, from Tzeltal, in accordance to the universities. For example, this is an example of a commercial engagement model that we experienced with Japan. Our biggest client is a Japanese multinational that has a lot of restaurants in the US, in Latin America, in Asia, but we didn't arrive to negotiate with them in a traditional way. We started working with Keio University, which in a project called Fair Trade Project involved organizations and big enterprises. So the relationship that we now have with Sensho, coming through the Keio University and then involving JICA, that's a Japanese International Cooperation Agency, created a mood of collaboration. And now Sensho is our biggest client, and in a sense of collaboration. They buy us the coffee, they sell it in their US restaurants, especially located in Southern California. But this wasn't able without the participation of university. Capeltic, the coffee shops that we have one here in the university, wouldn't be able if the University Iberoamericana would get involved with the project. So it's not only to perform research, but it's also to engage directly in the needs that we have as an organization to promote solutions that be able to create some of the results that we have. For example, this is the graphic of the coffee price, again, the local price, and the green line is the graphic of the cooperative's price. So this is one of the biggest results that we've had, because there was here a point in 2008 that we said, we cannot pay the stock exchange price plus the price. We have to take another strategy of paying a local steady price that will keep climbing over the future. And now, in 2011-12, when there was the big plummet of the price, the cooperative managed to keep its price. This was something that has never happened in the region, and that is unique in the world. Because we are able, not as a result, as a possibility, but as a possibilitant for another projects of investment in the region. The Cooperatives Assembly decided at this point that with the profit that they were getting, they would reinvest it in another project to build up the organizational base. For example, a microbank. And they decided that this year 5% of their income will get invested into creating a microbank. Also, one of the things that the community actors helped us to build this microbank. Because we do not have the capacities to build it. But maybe you do. Or maybe you know people that can create this. For example, that's why I invited here Gerardo. Gerardo is a former student of university, a student from Yale, and he worked with us for 2 months in Chiapas, walking alongside the cooperative in building the microbank. He was not alone. People from ESADE in Barcelona came to, people from the University Iberoamericana came to, but it was a thing that came from the producers, from the families that said, we have now this possibility, we need to invest in a territorial solution, let's build a microbank. Because the coyotes are charging us 10% monthly for the credits that we have. So this is how we try to work. And also the thing is that in this process, in this economical process, if we don't have an educational dimension the same size of the economical, we're lost because we're not generating capacities in the local settlers, in the local population, which means capacity generation, process control, and seeing business as a school. It's not only in the universities that we learn, or in the schools that we learn, but it's in the actual working that we're also able to learn. So for example, in coffee, it's to understand the coffee experiences. This is a coffee company, and the producers come with their coffee, and they understand, for example, what the market is paying for the different qualities of coffee. Something that they never know because they were always giving their coffee as a raw commodity. So how we build the capacities for understanding a dialogue with the market. And as this, we work with the agroecological experiences, with marketing, with industry, with business management. And for this, we understand that the problem that we are approaching is very complex. It's very difficult to address, and that we alone cannot do it. And to scale a project like this, to be able that this little experience in Chiapas, which presents an alternative for the systemic poverty problems produced by commodities, how we can scale it, how we can share this path that we've taken with other cooperatives, in coffee, in sugar, in tea, how we can do it alone, we can't. We can do it if we walk alongside different organizations with different charismas, especially with universities. Working alongside the universities has been crucial for us in many aspects. We worked with universities in Mexico, universities abroad. We worked with a lot of foundations, national and international foundations. Many of these foundations have their own objectives. So how we can put their objectives in a sense that this project can take advantage of these objectives. Also with different businesses that also have, in a sense, trying to do something different. So we invite them to join us because we alone aren't going to be able to have an accurate solution for this problem. And especially the universities, because we like to see them in a mid-term and a long-term linkage, taking into advantage the charisma of each of the universities that we work with. We work with Ibero Mexico, we work with Ibero Puebla, with ESADE in Spain, with UNAM, with Politécnico, and each of these universities have different ways to get involved and to contribute to the construction of this social project. There's a big field in investigation. It's easy to investigate, but especially I like these two because for us the university have been the key for the professionalization of practice, which in a sense is the viability of this project. It's not only investigating but getting involved in it and helping us to get the solutions in the practice, in the field. And also the promotion of intercultural dialogue. There's a lot of students, a lot of teachers coming to do the project, helping us in their expertise. But there's a lot of also communitarian and indigenous Tzeltal people that come here that know, for example, their coffee shops. Here's one coffee shop. A lot of students that deliver us papers and investigations and proposals in Capeltic that we do not ask for. So we are also giving the university a window. We're also providing them a sense to look into another reality. As an industrial engineer here, I was never told about social and solidarity economics. So how we can provide the alumni of the university with another glances of the reality, another alternatives of how to make things. And in a sense, just to finish, we understand that poverty, and extreme poverty, it's a global problem. Being a global problem, we need a global solution. But the solution, we think, comes from the local experience. So at the end, there's a sociologist called Boaventura de Souza, that he says that there's a contra-hegemonical movement of local experiences that, if tied together as a network, might be able to present as an alternative to the global poverty problems. So at the end, it's complex. We need the participation of a lot of people, especially the universities, that are the creators of knowledge, where we can reflect about it. And it's also to understand that it's not going to be a solution in a short term, but it's going to be in the long term, because building capacities takes time. And to face a systemical problem with so much economical interests, it's very difficult to face, if not little by little, and not in a macro. That's it. in Tzeltal, it's Hokolawalik, which means thank you. I don't know if you stay for some questions or I can sit down.
You should stay for some questions.
Okay. I'm running away just a type.
I just want to make a comment that I think for me it's very nice to see how students, when they started to be related with this project, I remember Alberto the first time he went, he was like a tourist. No? And the way he goes, I feel so proud to see him here, because you see how much they grow, how much they are now in charge of it, and they are looking for new things. And in fact, the whole team of Yomol A'tel, 5 of them are alumni from the university. I'm very proud of the 5 of them and the things they are doing. So I just want to mention that.
As Lorena said, the first time I went to Chiapas, I was invited by Lorena and by one of the teachers in industrial engineering, and I said that I wanted to go just because I wanted to discover the jungle and as a tourist project. And at the end, what I always say is that I lived in a bubble in this university, and what happened is that this bubble got broken, shattered into the floor, and I had to rebuild it the best way that I could. And for me, it was to understand what's my role, what's the privilege that I have of having studied in this university, and of the access that I have to this new cosmovision. So it's one of the
Good. So I have 2 questions I want to ask you. One is about the coffee price. How did you manage to stabilize the coffee price at a high level? Was that the goodwill of the buyers, or was that a contract that you made with the buyers that you basically lock in forward a certain price, and so if the price goes up, you still get it cheaply. If the price goes down, you pay us more?
Yeah, usually in a coffee value chain, there's around 7 to 9 intermediaries. So that was the first thing that we needed to cut down these intermediaries. And the other thing was to advance in the value chain. Because if we sell a finished product, if we sell a coffee bags in the shelf of a retail store won't flotate as a commodity. So the first thing is we do not sell commodities, sell a finished product. So that needed us to invest a lot in technology and in quality, not in volume. So we tried to keep the project small to be able to attend the quality issue. That's been the most important thing. First, the contracts with the clients that buy the coffee bag. As you said, it's a process. Not only that they come and buy the coffee, but they get involved in the project. And we try to look for this type of clients. For example, the Japanese guys, they're very technical, and each year they come to supervise the technical areas, to meet the producers. In fact, one of the stories that I have is that the director of this company came, the international director came, and we went to an assembly. It was like a very difficult thing because it was Japanese to English, English to Spanish to Tzeltal. But at the end we managed to communicate. We were in an assembly of around 40 people, and this guy starts speaking about, we do not come to buy your coffee only, I come here to meet you and to know your faces. And suddenly this Japanese guy, which was very square, like with a poker face, starts crying in front of all of the producers. And for me, it was like, what have I to do? How to pay or what do I do with this? And it was very nice because we were engaged in a reflection about the social project and how do we need to change the systemical things. And he had a business mind because he wanted to sell the coffee in their restaurants. And at the end, after 2 weeks, they went back to Japan. They signed a contract. And the contract was this big, with little letters, with a lot of things that they required from us that we weren't able to meet. And we said, like, what happened to all those tears in the meeting 2 weeks ago? Because now they're sending us a contract that we need to meet. And for it was very difficult, but we were able to meet them. And at the end, they helped us to reach a level of providers that they were able to buy the coffee. But
it was the contract basically stipulated a certain price out for several years.
Exactly, and each year we renegotiate price. Okay. And for example, this year they are telling us, coffee prices have fallen 60%, so what are we going to do about the idea of price? And it's again to explain, the price is going to stay, because you are in a project that bets for an equal price that will allow for the families to have stability in their financial income. And they understand it, and for them also, it's efficient. Because if they don't have to deal with all the risk and the volatility, for them as a business, if they are able to make this stable price into a competitive advantage for their business, that's how it works.
Right.
So for them, it also worked, but it was difficult. It was 2 years of negotiations to be able to get to this point. And that, for example, where we made the negotiations with the families, but at the end, for example, I that can speak English was a key player in these negotiations, even though it's not my project, but it's a project of the people.
And presumably the price that they pay to you for the coffee is a very small fraction of the price that they charge the people in the restaurant, right?
Exactly.
I imagine it's almost negligible.
Yeah, and for example, in the coffee shop that we have here, we discovered that. Because if we sell 1 kilogram at $12, the value that we are creating by selling this coffee in a cup is $150. So there's a lot of added value. Business in coffee is much more. So, but us understanding this in the coffee cup, we are able to give this value back, investing it in the project. But then we also understand our clients because we understand the cost structure for a cup of coffee.
The other question I have, you mentioned this microbanking, and I would like to know what a microbank exactly does. What sort of service does it provide? And one thing in connection here is microinsurance, right? So the thing that you would immediately think of if you think about fluctuating coffee prices and how badly that can damage the income of families is microinsurance. Yeah. That you essentially pay a certain premium, and then if the coffee price, depending on how it develops in Chicago or New York or wherever it is, you get a payout or you pay a higher premium or something, and so you compensate for these fluctuations. Is that part of it? Or
yeah, sure. And maybe because Gerardo just worked with this these 2 months in building alongside the producers in setting the rules that we want for our microbank. So maybe you can tell a little bit about it.
So the first thing we're doing is right now starting to build this microfinance institution, first by just giving loans. And the idea is that as we grow next years, we can diversify into deposits and also insurance.
You don't have deposits now.
Sorry?
You do not have deposits now.
No.
So where do you get the money for the loans?
So the thing we have done this year is what Alberto was telling, that the idea of having a premium price this year made the coffee co-op decide to give 5% of the revenues to form this microfinance. So the funds that we have right now is a common, it's a common fund built by the coffee cooperative, and also the honey and soap cooperatives. So we have this common fund. What we have done is build the structure of this institution only with Tzeltal people. So we have two managers, or two people from each cooperative deciding together how they're going to use these funds. Also, the idea is that with this first exercise, they will have the opportunity to train and to learn how to use this money, and that will give Yomol A'tel the opportunity of going next year and having this exercise done. Of first of all, having additional funds from the coffee co-op, but also going for funds outside.
Yeah, and I think that the most important thing is that there's a territorial problem, which is the lack of money, especially for health, and especially for lack of food. So there's a lot of producers that even though they're working this way, they come and ask for loans. So there's a structural problem there that coyotes are addressing by giving credits at 10%, not 120% yearly. So that's something that the producers, in a sense, said, we need to stop this. And how do we stop it? It's not by us creating a microbank, but it's in an organizational attempt, solidarity, to give a fund as a group, not as an individual. We'd like to address this problem. And this is the first seed that we will plant. It's by an organizational approach to solving this problem. And this is what we like to promote. And of course, having a microbank is very difficult. It's not easy to be a banker, especially if we have to face a territory with all these problems. So if we do not walk alongside the universities, walk alongside people that have the experience in microbanking, in microfinancing, it's only trying to diminish the probabilities of failure, because there's a lot of failure experience in the region.
And you are officially licensed by the government as a bank?
No, in fact, we studied everything, and we see that, for example, to be able to be licensed as a bank, you need 2 years of experience. So we're starting with these 2 years of experience, and then you're able to be licensed as a bank in Mexico. So all of this came, for example, from the study of Gerardo, from the study of the other student that came from Esares, that worked 2 months in just grasping all the technicities that needs to.
Right. And you're already making loans now.
Yes, we're starting next month.
What is your interest rate going to be?
It's going to be 2 and 4%. It depends on what the loans are for. So we have the emergency loans, which are mainly health and food emergencies. Those are going to be 2% monthly. And the other ones are going to be 4%. The other ones are mainly for working capital, so to improve the coffee production or the coffee.
It's a monthly rate.
Yes, it's monthly.
So it's a lot cheaper than the coyotes, but it's still a lot.
Yes, it's still expensive. The thing that has, in Mexico, the yearly loans are more or less about 80% in microfinance institutions.
80?
Yes.
Just a credit card is 45% yearly.
So yeah, we have, the thing that has let us be much cheaper is because we're building this microfinance institution all in the organizational structure. So as Alberto was saying, they have 8 different coffee production regions, and we're just in those regions, in those organizations. So the people that want loans, they start discussing their case in those regions, and then the regional, the regional manager or the representative of the region goes to the board, which is from the people from the 3 cooperatives, and they decide if they're going to give the loan to that producer or not. But yeah, I mean, the cost of monitoring and supervising the loans it's really low because we're building on those structures.
Yeah, so it's again a kind of territorial approach. Like, I mean, so not anybody can just come to you. Like I can't come tomorrow and say I want that money.
It's just for the coffee.
This is like a pilot. And that's also how we've worked with this project. Start little, start with few people, try to make a successful project, and then scale it. And especially, for example, this interest rate thing was we and Gerardo, we made the study of how much did it cost to sustain this organization without the subsidies from either foundations or the government or the coffee co-op. And this study said that with around 2% was the basic needs that we needed to sustain this organization. Because if we do not build these projects in order that they are self-sustainable in the future, it's very difficult to be able to present a solution. But at the end, it was the people involved in this project, the local people, the representatives from the cooperative that decided their rates.
I mean, again, to emphasize, the microinsurance would be a very nice second component for that, because many of the emergency loans are things that you could also preempt with microinsurance.
Exactly.
So, for example, funeral, right?
Exactly.
Funeral is very expensive, and instead of giving the person a loan, it would be much better if people had funeral insurance and, so to speak, build this up and wouldn't have to go into debt, because debt is even at low rates, which 2% is not very low, but it's even at low rates, it's a frightening thing.
Yeah, the idea is that as we go forward and we constitute legally the microfinance institution, we'll be able to offer those insurance and individual deposits. Because regulations require that if you're going to offer people the alternative of depositing their money individually, you have to cover all those regulations. So being regulated will let us do those things, the loans and the deposits and the insurance, like also to ensure their coffee production, for example, in case there's a natural disaster that they can cover, that they can have insurance for that, and health,
funerals,
all those things.
Because at the end, what we're trying to do is to de-articulate this intermediary network that is in Spanish called usura. I don't know what's the word in English, but it's the unfair rates that they offer.
Usury.
Yeah, okay. So we want to
How does it work?
Usury. U-S-U-R-Y.
Okay.
URY. So we like to de-articulate this network, and then the other big objective is to bring people from a debt spiral that they actually live on into a savings spiral, because we believe that savings is the key for the region. But first, we had to build that price. We had to build the financial stability income for the people, because if not, they really don't know what's the price or what's going to be their income in the next year. So it's like the first step, the first seed that we sell it in the Tzeltal, which is plant a seed for in 3 or 4 years. That's the time that a coffee tree is able to give cherry or give a coffee. We're able to have an institution that will cover this necessity in our own terms, building the autonomy for the region.
And there are 2 important functions that the bank also has. One is safekeeping, because often poor people are afraid to save money because they feel it's not safe. And the other one is transportation of money. Right? That you have sometimes family members working in the city or something, and it's very difficult for them to communicate money from one end to the other. If you can solve that problem for them by having a facility where, let's say, the person working in the city can put money in and the wife can pick it up very easily, right, on the cell phone or whatever, that would be great.
Yeah, that's the idea. And also one big challenge that we have with this is, which are the Tzeltal values in the lending of money? So in that sense, how we build a microbank, because it's not going to be a traditional microbank as it's in Africa or in other parts of Mexico, but it's our own microbank built with the Tzeltal indigenous values. And because there's a lot of the foundations that we work with, for example, the Ford Foundation, they told us, don't get into it. There's a lot of failure experiences. it's better if I contact you with another foundations that are working alongside these lines, have a lot of experience. And we said, let us meet them, let us acquire their experience, but at the end it's our micromanagement, because it has to respect the local culture, and it has to respect the local autonomy that we're looking for this territory.
So next question is, what happens to these coyotes? The coyotes, are they happy with your microbank? Or are they...
I think that nowadays we're not visible. We're visible because we built a new plant that is huge for the region, but still we are getting prepared, because it's not going to be easy for us, because when you mess with the power that someone has, either economically or political power, and you take them out, there's a replacement of that power. There's a lot of tension. So we are preparing for it.
They might be risking their lives sometimes.
That's what I'm fearing. That's what I'm fearing, because these coyotes are, people in the money lending business. They have ways of getting their money back, and these are not pretty. And so, if they don't like people, they have a way of expressing that. It would be highly uncomfortable.
And still, for example, for us now that we offered a high price, it's twice what the coyotes offered. For all these multinationals in the area, it's like there's a rental, because they are offering twice as we are offering. And even though it's not significant the volume that we offer for the region, still people say they are offering me that. How much can you offer me? So at the end, it's for them, it's to lose this economic power. It's to lose this political power that they have in the region. And also that's why it's so important to walk alongside other institutions, because we can't be alone in a battle like this. Not only in the building and the construction of this, but also as in a group.
Yeah, but where are these other institutions in the end? What can they do, right? What can the Japanese guy do for you if the coyotes become unpleasant?
Yeah,
what can the Ford Foundation do for you?
We don't know, but at the end, for example, it's difficult, but maybe it's in the name. Maybe and can I ask you, what can IBERO do if we have a balanced situation in Chilon?
But at least they know that they are not by themselves, and that if they mess with themselves, they will be messing around with universities, with foundations, with people that are very strong in the country.
Maybe it's a symbolic capital
that
we have in all this institutional.
And you have publicity, right? That's another thing.
Yeah,
visibility could be
Yes.
quite important, right? Then people say, our business thrives on being unnoticed, behind the scenes and so on, and we would create a lot of negative publicity if we did anything.
In fact, in the plan there are all the people that are participating, all the organizations that they see. They are not by themselves. It's not just a plan, they are all these people behind.
I'm speaking as an outsider. I mean, I just read in the newspaper a lot of bloody stories about Mexico. So I'm just worried about you guys.
And there are two networks that we have. One is the external network with the university, with the foundations. But there's also a local network, because with the people that we work in the communities are natural leaders, right? It's communitarian leaders. And they have also a very important leadership in the region. And if something's bad is going to happen, there's going to be a big mobilization. And that's also important of the social empowerment. Because locally we have a social network, social basis that we can sit upon and hold upon towards these other networks, that coyotes and intermediaries that we would try to
Yes, and that's what I wanted to find out about the network. Are these coyotes, are they individuals who are sort of lone wolves playing each by themselves? Or are they a kind of mafia that are connected with each other? Are they insiders? Are they locals? Are they outsiders from the rest of Mexico? Who are they?
I think it's everybody that you just said, because it's a very complex chain in coffee. And it also happens in sugar, it also happens in all of the commodities. We have the big companies, trading companies. In our region, we have detected 5 of them that they work all through in all of our world, working not only with coffee, but many of the other of the commodities. They have their local intermediary, they have their local warehouse. This local warehouse has the contact with smaller warehouses, that has a contact with people inside the communities. So it's a network that has spread it all through the territory. And at the end, in response, I had an experience in Japan. I went to the biggest coffee roasting industry of Asia, and we met with the director of this company, and one of the things that we asked is, are you aware of the conditions of the people that work on the coffee that you receive in your plant? And he was Japanese, and he said, I'm not aware, but it's not really my interest, because my objective is to produce 11,000 tons per month, and I need for 400 trailers full of coffee to reach my plant for me to meet my objectives. And he's not a bad guy. He's just a guy that has his objectives. He just he has a work, he has a family, and he's part of this structure. That's why it's a systemical problem, because they're all parts, and all these people have their families. And usually there's part of the mafia. Maybe when you go to the local and to the lending and to the credit, but most of them have families, and for them it's their work. But it's this systemical structure that produces all these extreme conditions and poor conditions in these areas. It's not the people that are victims; it's the structure.
Yeah, but the coyotes are a little bit different. That they do sometimes quite nasty things.
Well, of course, they when you need, and the people go to the coyotes because people know that the coyotes have the money. They say you can go and you can have $200 to go and take care of your health situation. You pay me back with coffee, maybe in 3 months. And with the interest rate that they're giving, maybe the coffee would be half the worth of what the harvest. Yeah.
They also offer a lower price for the coffee. So it's 2 times. I mean, they pay with coffee, high interest rates, and they pay a lower price for the coffee.
Yeah, they win in both
Yeah, the coffee is worth less with them.
And I want to say that many of the coyotes were the former, the ones that used to be the landowners. The landlords. And so, in fact, they are still the landlords.
But they also, aren't they violent if you don't pay back?
Usually, with the families, it depends, because there are a lot of type of coyotes. As I said, maybe in a community, there's a guy with the money that lends, and maybe he says, okay, maybe you can pay me, but you will pay me next year, or you will pay me with all your coffee. And then you see that the family cannot have income for their coffee because they cannot meet the requirements of the coyote. And sometimes they are violent, of course.
The harvest is already compromised when time comes.
Exactly.
So they are just.
There are some parallels between the urban situation of yours and his rural situation, where there are like competing interests for these people, and you're displacing them. They used to make money out of it because they bought the votes of these people in Santa Fe in exchange for certain services. And you're taking away that little market. He's taking away the market. And thinking, that in the future, if Capeltic starts displacing Starbucks, you would have another angry interest against yours. So, but somehow it also reflects that poverty is also like the poor are captive to serve certain interests that are territorial.
Yes.
It's not just the world structures; it's their local structures, and you have to buy out those that own them, so to speak, or you have to displace them silently. But it's like they are captives of certain interests. Apart from being poor, the solutions have to be worked through this interest that holds them captive. And there's where you lose things. I mean, Alberto was telling me that even fair trade is not as fair, or is not as fair as what he is starting to offer.
But because fair trade still works in the systemical logic of the volatility. It only gives a premium to the coffee price traded in the coffee stock. So it's like it's trying to calm down the problem, but not having a deep solution for the systemic problem. palliative.
Yes, I think something that was very remarkable was this idea of opening the coffee shop here. And something that was very interesting was that when they came with the idea, this group of students, of having the first coffee shop here, and our rector,
Our president
told them, okay, but you are going to compete against Starbucks and against all the other big coffee trademarks that are interested in having a coffee shop here. And they did such a nice, excellent job that convinced the authorities that it was a viable business. I think that they did like this big step in building this whole, completing the value added chain, and to show what the student can do.
We are doing this with ASAP. I mean, one of our projects is Know Your Supplier, where university students are checking the supply chain of their own universities to figure out where does all the stuff come from, right? So we have coffee shops on campus, we have souvenir shops on campus, we have furniture, office furniture that Yale is buying. All sorts of things. Universities are huge consumers, and if all universities in the north were to buy conscientiously, looking at labor standards, environmental standards, and so on, and we could have a ranking scale, where every supplier is ranked it's graded, and universities could say we are only buying from firms that are ranked 7 or higher. That would make a huge difference. It would make your job internally easier.
Yeah, and I think that should be an example for the students being formed in this university, because it's the students, for example, Yale students or Ibero-American students that are usually placed in strategic jobs that define usually the path of a country, and it's important for them to at least know that there are alternatives.
But that these alternatives can be built even if you're a student. Because that's what I really enjoy of this. Because usually they say, when you graduate, you are going to do this, and when you graduate, you're going to do that, and you're going to be the leaders of the country. Why do you have to wait until you graduate? I mean, they have shown, Patty has shown, Alberto has shown, and all the students that are working now with Chava are showing that you can do things since you're a student. I mean, like, we are looking and we say, well, they are in charge of all this area and the microfinance and that, so let's start working, let's start strengthening all these of the housing, the watering, the other part that Alberto mentioned, all these, how can we strengthen working with a special church in Chiapas that is called the cuidadores, the ones, those who take care of the land, of our motherland, and working with them and trying to find out how could we work healthier habitats that has proper use of water, proper use of housing, so that when this microfinance thing is ready and they start thinking in housing, we say we already have here all the housing projects. So we are working parallel, we're working them to that and with the students, and it's so nice to see what students of third semester are doing. They're only third semester and they are already so committed and so trying to understand what the problem is and understanding that you have to start by listening and getting to know. It was very nice experience that we had with water. So because when we came there, we came with some ideas of how could we do the water supplies properly there, and using their own Tzeltal knowledge, as Alberto was saying, they said, no, we don't like your proposal. Here, the way we build is with these techniques and with these things, and we say, wow, yes, this is much more sensible. So it was very nice to see. So I think to believe in students, to believe their capabilities. I mean, really, it's so nice to see them talking about banking and things. And as I said, seeing all the rows, or seeing Patty thinking and like sort of thinking what can we do in Santa Fe and building all these nets and things. It's so nice to think when they were just students, they really have grown.
Yeah, the values that you're trying to impart to the students will really sink in only if they work with these values, rather than if you learn them out of a textbook.
Of course. And if they are in context and if they face problems and start thinking on solutions since they are students, and also when they start understanding that you have to work with all sorts of different levels and all sorts of different people to start viewing all the different point of view, to think locally but act globally, or I mean, these things is important, and the only way you can do this is if you give them the opportunity when they are still students. And that's something that I'm very proud of Patty and Alberto and many others, and Lucy and Belinda and Neda and Andrea and all the people that are working in Yomol A'tel and Jose Andres, of course, and very proud. Now you, I'm just very nice to see you here.
Well, thank you guys that had to be taken from your occupations for the day to presenting this and for working in the presentation and all that. I enjoyed very much all the process of getting to learn more about what you're doing. I had an idea, but because I had this idea of having this meeting, I learned a lot more. And thank you also, Thomas, for listening to us, for giving us feedback. You pointed out about two very important things. I think we have to do something now. Because I remember when the Social Responsibility Prize was given, the lady that got the first place was in tears because she had has like, I don't remember exactly what she does, but it's like she works in a very remote place in Oaxaca and works with a community and had built facilities for education and all that. And the day before she came to receive the prize, it was destroyed by a group of vandals that were politically motivated to do it. And she was in tears receiving the prize, more like renewing her vows to continue working hard. But all these people are in danger. We need to think of a way of guaranteeing their security, their safety, a way of giving them visibility, so to elevate the cost for anyone that wants to fancy their chances in harming and all that. And the same for your students over there. We have to think of something. And the government, what Alberto's doing is like, there are market failures that are affecting the Indians there. There are government failures that are affecting, and he's mending them. And then on top of that, they can't protect his work or protect what he's doing. It's something that some commitment is needed, and maybe we have to work in that area. Maybe ask the rector to do something about it and talk to authorities and things like that, because there will always be that risk. And another very important idea, because Thomas is very interested in measuring with more precision. What is it? How is it? When is it that people really start departing from poverty, and what is it when they are really like falling, impoverishing their condition more? So he has worked a lot about indices to measure. And I know that you see a smiling face and that you see how the behaviors change in your community. That's a qualitative side. But perhaps we also need to start measuring with more, measuring with some indices, surveys, etc., something more systematic to see how much they change, how much their conditions change in relation to other places within Santa Fe. So that was his recommendation.
Yes.
Yeah, that will also help you with some of the organizations that you need support from.
Yes.
You know, the network.
Yeah, for getting funding.
For getting funding, for example, or just support where people say, we are willing to buy your coffee and we are willing to pay extra because we see that this is really doing measurable good in the community.
Well, if we could share with you the indices you are missing, that will help us a lot because it's our challenge. In all the projects everywhere, that's a big challenge.
That might be work for the guys that are studying, you know, all this mathematics and actuarios. You know, those numbers.
On your first point, I wanted to add one more thing about the coyotes. What I picture would be useful is to have some social science research on who they are. Just understanding them. Because they are people, they have networks, they have families, they have a social world in which they live. And maybe if one understood them and if one could give them a different take on life, you know, some other way of making money, maybe there would be a way of avoiding this kind of confrontation. Right? Of course, I would know nothing, but it would be. I would think that this would be where it would start, is trying to find out.
And I think that we know little about that.
Right.
Well, we brought you this type of outfit as a present from Chiapas.
Thank you so
The lab is produced by the wives of the coffee producers.
Yeah.
So
Maybe the bags.
yeah.
I've been to Chiapas actually, and so I know a little bit this beautiful, beautiful embroidery that they do. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
It's very welcome.
So, thank you everybody. I think it was very fruitful presentation.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Thank you.